Hey free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. So for today, I'm going to showcase 4 different kinds of teams so that this caters possibly to more of you guys. Now the thing is, this is not particularly like a free-to-play guide on like what kind of free-to-play Espers you can use. This is more of like what kind of Espers you can use depending on what you already have. So I think one of the main worries that I see in my comments is that you guys like to ask me how can I replace Clara, because I keep showcasing Clara in most of my Fafnir videos. Now the thing is, you do not even need to use a Clara. She is good, but she is not essential. And the reason why she is not essential is you can clearly beat this without even needing a healer. So for example, in this team that you're looking at right now, this is the more free-to-play team that I'm showcasing. And over here, I'm using Heng Yue. But the thing is, you do not even need Heng Yue. You can make do with Gabrielle, who is completely not a healer. She's just a really good support. And you'd still be doing fine. Now the reason why I say this is a more free-to-play team is because my perspective of Fafnir is that you do not really want to partake in it unless you already have a certain plethora of Espers to choose from. And that's because there is just no shortcut towards Fafnir. Yes, I know some of you guys did mention like using tanky teams and all that. It really does work. Okay, that really works because if you'd be able to tank, you know, the frozen attack from the boss, you'd be able to survive and ultimately beat him with like after X amount of time, right? But the thing is, we are not going to be focusing so much on, you know, just 100% win rate. We also want to do it fast. So the 4 teams that I'm going to be showcasing you today will be generally very fast, all around like 3 minutes timing, and it can definitely be improved further if I focus a little bit more resources on my Fafnir teams. But I just want to give you a flavor of what you can do, you know, to build your Fafnir team. Now, a very common trio that you're going to see is going to be Tangyun, Louis, and Bernice. I feel like these 3 are like the core to Fafnir teams. And with them, I feel like you'd be able to, you know, bring 2 any other Espers and generally perform really well as long as these main 3 Espers are built correctly. I'm going to showcase all of my relics towards the end of the video. You can refer to the timestamps below. But yep, this is generally team number 1. It is pretty fast because, like I said before, you need to clear the first 2 waves faster so that you reach the boss faster. This is the easiest way for you to reduce timer on your runs without relying too much on RNG. So yep, this team relies on Sander. Now the thing is, the reason why I really like to use Sander here is, oh well, obviously he has a speed lead, which is going to be very powerful here, right? But on top of that, you are also going to be using Sander for Chronos. You might be using him for Apep. You also might be using him for Temporal Tower. So this is basically killing all the birds with one single stone. And this is why I always recommend you to use Sander. Now obviously, you do not need to use Heng Yue if you do not have her, right? Or in fact, if you have better healers, like let's say you have Clara or you have Ahmed, they are going to be much better options than Heng Yue. And even though we lost our Sander over here, it's still okay because we still have enough DPS to push through to, you know, reduce his final HP bar, and that's basically it, right? So this was a sub 3 minutes run, which is pretty fast in my opinion, although I'm sure a lot of people out there will have a lot faster teams than me. But yeah, this just goes to show that it's very efficient. Now we're going to move on to team number 2, so this relies on Ahmed and Catherine. And as you can see, the main core 3 is still here, right? And I'm also going to skip the first 2 waves because the first showcase already covers all of that. So it's always going to be the same, right? Typically the same. Okay, so I'm going to discuss a little bit more about like this team and in particular Ahmed and Catherine. Now do take note that without Sander, your team is going to be a lot slower, right? You do not have that 25% speed lead anymore. And instead, we are going to be using Louis' 30% attack leader buff, which is not necessarily a very efficient exchange, but it still works. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about Ahmed. So he's really good for various reasons. Okay, so number 1, he has multi-hits on his first skill. And number 2, his passive removes the HP cap reduction on your allies. And at the same time, it also improves their damage. And finally, number 3, his third skill also reduces the cooldown of your entire team, which allows you to throw in, you know, more of your skills, more of your healing, more of your buffs, more of your attacks. It just provides a lot of support. So that's basically it. But the thing is, he does not have like cleansing and all that, right? So that's where Catherine comes in to fill in the gap. Now the thing about Catherine is she only works because of her first skill and her passive. Her third skill is generally not very useful, and if she does land her third skill, that's a bad thing. So she's not going to work with Ocean Waves. You do not want her to use her third skill so often. And in fact, if you're only going to be using her for Fafnir, I would highly suggest that you try not to reduce the cooldown on her third skill. Now the reason why Catherine is so good is her first skill multi-hits, right? It hits twice. And her passive works amazing. So it actually removes stuns, it removes all kinds of debuffs, and that triggers whenever she takes a turn. So she has to be built very fast over here. In fact, the best is if she can be the fastest Esper in this game so that she always takes the first turn. And that also means that she is more often than not able to cleanse all the stuns on your team, all the slows on your team before your allies actually take their turn. And the way I'm building her is to use Astral Witchcraft. So the thing is, when my allies are stunned, or maybe when my Catherine is stunned herself, she is going to move much faster to get rid of the debuffs much quicker. So it can be a viable strategy to build Catherine with very little resistance so that she don't always resist the stuns from the boss. And if that's the case, she's going to move a lot faster because she's going to trigger a lot of Astral Witchcraft on her own self. But the thing is, you also have to consider that, you know, she may just get slowed without getting the stun, and that could be very detrimental. But as you can see over here, my Catherine was stunned and that improved her speed. So that is something for you to consider, right? So I think that's about it for this team. This team is definitely more efficient than the previous one because there is a lot more multi-hits going on here, and there is very strong cleansing and healing in this team. Well, obviously Ahmed is going to be a really good choice here because not only is he healing, he is also improving the damage of your team, which therefore improves the run times. We did it a little bit slower here with 3 minutes 13 seconds, but a lot of it also boils down to RNG, you know, like, did you land your crits? Did he freeze the correct Esper? Did he overstun or overslow your team? So all of that needs to be considered. But anyway, now we move on to the third team, and this one relies a little bit more on Biondina. So the reason why Biondina is so strong here is her passive that strips off the buffs from the boss every single turn that she takes. So ideally, you want your Biondina to be not slow, you want her to be decently speedy. So I think for me, my Biondina is about 160 plus, and it has been working really well for me. Now this showcase will not perform really well because you will not see me take full advantage of Biondina's passive here, and that's because I generally deplete the HP bar a little bit too quickly. But the thing is, this works really well for mid-game players who are just starting to dabble into Fafnir. And if you do not have a lot of damage, then I think she can be very helpful, you know, in like landing some defense breaks and all that. So this also brings me to Gabrielle, right? So the reason why Gabrielle is here is not only is she giving me immunity buffs, she is also landing defense breaks on the boss. So I think there's a really good synergy over here. It's pretty strong. So between Gabrielle and Biondina, this works really well. But if you do not have a Biondina, all hope is not lost. You can also use Jeanne. I think Jeanne is a really good replacement here as well. So Jeanne has a ton of multi-hits and she also strips buffs on her third skill, although she cannot do it every single turn, unlike Biondina. And Biondina also brings quite decent DPS at the same time. So you can think of Biondina as like an offhand DPS or like maybe a secondary DPS, whichever you prefer. So not only is she going to provide so much support by removing the immunity buff, she is also going to do about like, you know, 30 to 40,000 damage, which is pretty good. It's pretty good for a support. And yes, I can see some of your eyes opening up. What, Biondina is support? That is generally her function here, just to remove buffs. Everything else is just the icing on the cake. Now, I do not have my Zelma build, but you can definitely use her in place of Gabrielle, so you can go like full DPS on this team, except for Baroness of course. And the reason why Zelma is a good replacement to Gabrielle is because Zelma also defense breaks on her first skill, and she does a ton of multi-hits, and she also scales her damage according to the debuffs that you land on the boss. So for example, we have Seer debuff, we have defense breaks, we have buff blocker as well, not that it really matters here, and we also have like bleeding stacks. So Zelma is a perfect fit over here. It's just unfortunate that I do not have her built, so I'm not going to showcase her this time. But you can definitely tweak, you know, all of these lineups. So like for example, I do have healers in some of these comps, except for this one, right? So the thing is, if you do not need a healer, you can always replace the healer with something with multi-hits, or you can replace with something with more DPS, or maybe immunity like Gabrielle. Or if you really want to, you can even use Lin Xiao, because Lin Xiao is an AoE speed debuff. And I think if you really want to have an attack buffer, I think Sienna might be the best choice here because she also carries a speed buff. And she also has a multi-hit on her first skill. And I know some of you guys are going to say that her third skill is inefficient here, but the thing is she gains another turn, so it doesn't matter what she does after that. Her third skill is always just going to be one extra hit. So that's the end of this team. It's about 3 minutes, pretty good. Now we move on to the next and the final one. Now you might have already seen me using this team in the previous Fafnir video that I covered recently. And the reason why I use this team a lot is because I feel like this gives me the best win rate, because Clara is just really good at cleansing, really good at giving immunity buffs, really good at giving me shield buffs. And I always say that she's not essential because you can definitely beat Fafnir without her, but she's just gonna be really good, like just keeping you really safe, right? And I'm bringing Sander back again because I feel like his 25% speed lead is very powerful, especially for Fafnir. So in general, this team is very safe and very fast. Well, with air quotes of course, nothing in Fafnir is fast. But yeah, I know some of you guys have been asking me to showcase the twins for Fafnir, and the thing is, I desperately want to showcase them, but I do not have them skilled up. Now the thing is, if you want to use the twins here, or if you want to use the twins for any content whatsoever, they need to be skilled up, because the thing is, you want to capitalize on their really low cooldown. So on their second and third skill, they have a very low cooldown of just 3 turns. and they dismantle the shield so efficiently, so they are an awesome duo. So I'll probably showcase them in a separate video, maybe just like a twins Esper review, or like one of my Esper debut videos that I tend to do. So possibly maybe in at least 2 weeks time when I gather enough resources to skill them up. So I hope you guys have patience with me. It is really difficult for me to showcase all the Espers that I really want to showcase, and I do apologize if I keep you guys on the hold. But yeah, I feel like I just have to get this out there so that you guys understand that I will showcase the twins. So going back to the question, right, if I do not have a Clara, what can I use? Absolutely anything. I've just shown you how many different teams that you can bring into this specific boss fight. And it ranges from everything, right, except for the tanky team, right? I did not cover the tanky team because it probably takes way too long, or at least it takes way too long for me to showcase in this video itself. I might do it separately, just so that you guys understand a little bit more about how it works. But yeah, I've covered a quite free-to-play team. I've covered a team without heals. I've also covered a very premium Ahmed Catherine team. And I've also covered something like this, which is a little bit more efficient in my opinion. So yeah, you do not need specific Espers for this fight. There are some really good choices, and there are some even better choices. So if you need more help on who to bring, you can just comment down below your lineup and request for some recommendations, for example. But of course, do your homework and provide me with all the information you have so that I can assist you as much as I can. But yep, that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Daddy Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Oh, and also stay on till the end if you want to see all of my relics.